3 years after Jiang Yongqing betrayed him, Ming returned with one impossible advantage. Experience poured into him every second. As the entire plaza watched, the necromancer everyone called useless could now grow stronger while sleeping, eating, or simply standing still. As fate began moving differently, in his first life, Jiang shoved him from a cliff and laughed as a monster horde tore him apart below. While the crowd judged appearances alone, now Ming opened his eyes on awakening day, exactly 3 years before that betrayal ever happened. While the hidden counter kept rising, a hidden system immediately began granting 1 experience point every second, with no battle and no visible limit. Without revealing what he remembered, by midnight, he would receive tens of thousands of points, enough to erase years of humiliation overnight. As the system quietly changed everything, before anyone understood what had changed, Ming punched his future murderer across the face and crushed his arrogance publicly. With 3 years of hatred behind him, this time, the betrayed necromancer would not beg for experience, trust false friends, or die at level 9. While every passing second added power, the plaza of North River Academy looked exactly as Ming remembered, down to every banner and nervous student, with no intention of repeating history. Cold sweat covered his face while the memory of claws ripping through his body remained painfully fresh. Before the ceremony could continue, Principal Gao Baosong stood on the stage, delivering the same awakening speech Ming had heard in his previous life. Beneath the awakening pillar's fading light, every sentence matched his memory, confirming that this was neither a dream nor a final hallucination. Before his enemies recognized the danger, humanity lived in a world shaped by classes, monsters, dungeons, and talent grades ranging from lowest to highest. Under the Academy staff's nervous attention, combat professions could become heroes, while weak or ordinary professions were usually pushed towards safe civilian work. As his second chance became real, Ming had once possessed top-grade talent, so teachers expected his awakening to produce an unstoppable combat genius. While teachers trusted outdated knowledge, instead, he awakened the unique necromancer class. With terrible starting attributes and no skill anyone understood. While nobody understood his reaction, the last recorded necromancer had allegedly died fighting the weakest slime, turning the profession into a century-old joke, with betrayal still burning in his memory. Ming spent 3 miserable years being rejected by teams and begging stronger students for tiny shares of experience, as the worthless class became his weapon. After reaching level 9, he finally discovered that necromancy had been misunderstood from the very beginning. With the old timeline still vivid, unfortunately, Jiang Yongqing killed him before he could transform that discovery into real power. Before another name was called, this second chance arrived with perfect timing, because Ming still remembered every mistake and every hidden opportunity. As the entire plaza watched, then a translucent screen appeared before him, separate from the ordinary class interface used by awakened humans. As fate began moving differently, the display identified itself as the super system and announced that its primary function had successfully activated. While the crowd judged appearances alone, its rule was simple enough to sound impossible. Ming gained 1 experience point every passing second. While the hidden counter kept rising, the accumulated experience could be extracted once each day when midnight arrived, without revealing what he remembered. 1 second became 1 point, 1 minute became 60, and 1 full day produced 86,400 experience. As the system quietly changed everything, Ming stared at the rising counter, while his heart pounded harder than it had during his first awakening. With 3 years of hatred behind him, other students would enter dungeons, risk death, split rewards, and fight over monsters worth only a few points. While every passing second added power, he could surpass them while lying in bed, provided he survived long enough to collect the system's gift. With no intention of repeating history, Principal Gao noticed his trembling hands and assumed the talented student was nervous about the ceremony. Before the ceremony could continue, he reassured Ming that top-grade talent offered a limitless future regardless of the profession he received. Beneath the awakening pillar's fading light, a mocking voice immediately interrupted from behind, poisoning the moment with fake confidence and familiar contempt. before his enemies recognized the danger. Jiang Yongqing joked that the academy's genius might awaken as a common laborer and entertain everyone. Under the academy staff's nervous attention, Ming recognized that voice instantly, because it had been the last sound he heard before his death. As his second chance became real, the cliff, the laughter, and the monsters flashed across his mind until restraint became impossible. While teachers trusted outdated knowledge, he turned without warning and drove his fist directly into Jiang Yongqing's face. While nobody understood his reaction, before the shocked traitor could recover, Ming delivered a brutal kick that folded him onto the ground, with betrayal still burning in his memory. Instructors rushed between them while students whispered, unable to understand why Ming attacked without provocation. As the worthless class became his weapon, Jiang Yongqing curled in pain, staring upward with hatred and disbelief. With the old timeline still vivid, Ming wanted to finish the revenge immediately, but he understood that public murder would destroy his second life. Before another name was called, he allowed the teachers to separate them and returned his attention to the experience counter. As the entire plaza watched, every new point reminded him that time itself had become his most reliable weapon. As fate began moving differently, Principal Gao warned him that Jiang Yongqing possessed a strong talent and came from an influential family. While the crowd judged appearances alone, Ming nodded politely, but he no longer feared either wealth or reputation. While the hidden counter kept rising, revenge could wait until he had enough power to make certain Jiang never escaped again. Without revealing what he remembered, a golden pillar erupted from the center of the plaza, announcing the beginning of the awakening ceremony. As the system quietly changed everything, the first nervous student entered and emerged as a chef, gaining security but losing any dream of battlefield glory. With 3 years of hatred behind him, another student awakened as a massage therapist, drawing immature laughter from the watching crowd while every passing second added power. Principal Gao reminded everyone that only a small percentage would receive combat or support professions with no intention of repeating history. Most students would leave with ordinary classes, despite years of training and family expectations. Before the ceremony could continue, then Hua Haitao stepped forward, carrying the same top-grade talent that made him Ming's public rival beneath the awakening pillar's fading light. He approached the pillar with obvious arrogance and glanced sideways, hoping Ming would react. Before his enemies recognized the danger, Ming ignored him completely, which angered Hua more than any insult could have done. Under the academy staff's nervous attention, the awakening light exploded around Hua Haitao and confirmed that he had received a powerful combat profession. As his second chance became real, Principal Gao nearly shouted with excitement, while students stared with admiration and jealousy. While teachers trusted outdated knowledge, Hua returned with his head raised, deliberately walking close enough to display his success. While nobody understood his reaction, Ming remained calm because his hidden counter was already creating a future far beyond Hua's imagination. With betrayal still burning in his memory, one by one, more students entered the light and discovered the paths their lives would follow. As the worthless class became his weapon, finally, Principal Gao called Ming's name, and the entire plaza turned toward the fallen genius. With the old timeline still vivid, in his previous life, these next moments had opened the door to 3 years of shame before another name was called. This time, Ming walked forward knowing that the same supposedly worthless profession would become his greatest advantage. As the entire plaza watched, the instant he entered the golden pillar, daylight vanished and the sky turned black. As fate began moving differently, a gigantic skull formed above the academy as cold winds swept across the terrified crowd. While the crowd judged appearances alone, teachers stared upward because such a dramatic phenomenon normally accompanied legendary or unique professions. While the hidden counter kept rising, Jiang Yongqing clutched his injuries and insisted that the spectacle was only a meaningless curse. Without revealing what he remembered, the darkness collapsed, the golden light returned, and the awakening announcement echoed across the square. As the system quietly changed everything, Ming had received the unique combat profession known as necromancer. With 3 years of hatred behind him, for one heartbeat, everyone remained silent beneath the fading image of the enormous skull. While every passing second added power, Then Jiang Yongqing laughed loudly and reminded the crowd that history considered necromancers completely useless. With no intention of repeating history, other students joined him, relieved that the Academy's famous genius had apparently fallen below them. Before the ceremony could continue, Principal Gao's excitement disappeared, replaced by visible disappointment and a helpless sigh. Beneath the awakening pillar's fading light, Ming heard every insult, but none of them mattered beside the private screen floating before him. Before his enemies recognized the danger, his profession was unique, meaning no other living person could possess the same class while he survived. Under the Academy staff's nervous attention, his starting strength, agility, spirit, and physique were each far below normal human standards, as his second chance became real. However, the class granted additional free attributes whenever he leveled, giving him an unusual path to growth. While teachers trusted outdated knowledge, Ming immediately placed every available point into agility, raising his speed beyond an ordinary beginner. While nobody understood his reaction, his body became lighter, his reactions sharpened, and the surrounding crowd seemed slightly slower, with betrayal still burning in his memory. He chose speed because survival mattered more than impressive damage during the dangerous early levels. As the worthless class became his weapon, a living necromancer could resummon an army, but a dead necromancer could accomplish nothing. With the old timeline still vivid, when Ming left the pillar, Jiang Yongqing blocked his path and continued mocking the failed genius. Before another name was called, Ming looked directly into his eyes and dismissed him as a clown unworthy of attention. As the entire plaza watched, the insult turned Jiang's face purple, especially after the beating he had already suffered. As fate began moving differently, he promised that Ming would regret speaking so arrogantly after awakening such a pathetic class. While the crowd judged appearances alone, Ming walked past without answering, treating his future murderer like dust beneath his shoes. While the hidden counter kept rising, Jiang Yongqing entered the pillar next and awakened as a mage, exactly as Ming remembered. Without revealing what he remembered, he returned laughing, believing his profession had permanently placed him above the necromancer, as the system quietly changed everything. By then, Ming's hidden experience counter had already accumulated more points than Jiang could earn in many dungeon runs. With 3 years of hatred behind him, the Academy understood level growth through brutal mathematics that favored teams, money, and established families. While every passing second added power, even the weakest monsters granted only a handful of experience. While each new level demanded increasingly larger totals, with no intention of repeating history, a poor beginner could spend months fighting safely and still remain trapped near the bottom. Before the ceremony could continue, Ming would receive more experience during a single night than most students could gather in years. Beneath the awakening pillar's fading light, the ceremony produced another shocking result when Ye Lingfei stepped into the light. Before his enemies recognized the danger, ice spread across the golden pillar as the silver-haired student awakened the rare ice mage profession. Under the Academy staff's nervous attention, the crowd erupted because her top-grade talent, an elemental class, created an obviously elite combination. As his second chance became real, Ye Lingfei left without celebrating, carrying the same distant expression Ming remembered from his previous life. While teachers trusted outdated knowledge, Jiang Yongqing noticed Ming watching and warned that a failure had no right to approach her. While nobody understood his reaction, Ming told him to be quiet, refusing to accept even the smallest humiliation this time. With betrayal still burning in his memory, the traitor threatened him again, unaware that every passing second widened the gap between them as the worthless class became his weapon. When the ceremony ended, fewer than 1 student in 10 had received a combat or support profession. With the old timeline still vivid, Principal Gao ordered those selected students to gather the next morning for their first novice dungeon trial. Before another name was called, the announcement created excitement, fear, and desperate calculation across the plaza, with old memories guiding every decision. Ming felt only anticipation, because the dungeon contained the corpses needed to awaken necromancy's hidden function. As the family's silence grew heavier, as students dispersed, Wang Xiaoming slapped Ming's shoulder and promised to help the supposedly helpless necromancer level safely. With one loyal friend still worth saving, The loyal warrior had always treated Su Ming honestly, even when everyone else abandoned him, while his father remained dangerously injured. That kindness hurt, because Su Ming remembered that Wang died during the novice dungeon trial in the original timeline. Before another ambush could succeed, he warned his friend to skip the trip, but could not explain that the warning came from a previous life. As the novice trial approached rapidly, Wang laughed at the strange request and assumed Su Ming was worried after receiving a disappointing profession. Before midnight released the stored reward, they separated at a crossroads, leaving Su Ming uncertain whether the warning would truly change fate. While his second life gathered momentum, by early evening, he entered a dim alley and noticed a familiar girl waiting beneath the shadows. Without wasting strength on empty arguments, Shen Yao had once been the person he pursued with embarrassing devotion, as false friends exposed themselves again. In the first timeline, she used that affection to lure him into an ambush arranged by Jiang Yongqing. With the system working beyond public sight, the beating kept Su Ming hospitalized for weeks and prevented him from attending an important examination. While the apartment remained emotionally frozen, this time, he approached with a calm face and slapped Shen Yao before she could perform her fake concern. Without trusting anyone to protect him, several hired thugs rushed from hiding, confirming that the betrayal was unfolding exactly as he remembered. As every warning changed the future, Su Ming's newly raised agility made the attackers appear clumsy and slow. With his mother's death still unexplained, he slipped through their formation, avoided every grabbing hand, and escaped before they understood what happened. While the first dungeon waited ahead, the sting in his palm felt better than any apology Shen Yao could have offered. Before Jiang could arrange another trap, behind him, the humiliated girl screamed while the thugs cursed the speed they had underestimated. As the countdown toward midnight ended, Su Ming returned to the small home he shared with his injured father, Su Chong, with survival taking priority over pride. The dark living room carried the same silence and emotional distance that had poisoned their relationship for years. While Su Chong hid unbearable pain, Su Chong had once been a proud berserker, but a disastrous dungeon mission destroyed his body and spirit, with old memories guiding every decision. That mission also killed Su Ming's mother, leaving questions neither father nor son could discuss honestly. As the family's silence grew heavier, Su Chong already knew about the necromancer awakening and responded with a hollow, bitter laugh, with one loyal friend still worth saving. To him, the class represented another failure his damaged family could not afford. While his father remained dangerously injured, Su Ming demanded answers about the old dungeon and the secrets his father had hidden for 5 years. Before another ambush could succeed, Su Chong overturned a table and called him unqualified to challenge an experienced warrior. As the novice trial approached rapidly, the argument exposed years of grief, shame, and frustration neither man knew how to express. Before midnight released the stored reward, Su Ming silently promised that he would become strong enough to force the truth into the open. While his second life gathered momentum, a violent crash interrupted them as the alley thugs kicked through the front door. Without wasting strength on empty arguments, Shen Yao entered behind 4 armed men, openly admitting that Jiang Yongqing was the person she supported now. As false friends exposed themselves again, the leader mocked Su Ming, then dismissed Su Chong as another helpless loser sitting in darkness. With the system working beyond public sight, despite their strained relationship, Su Ming stepped forward and ordered the attackers to leave his father alone. While the apartment remained emotionally frozen, Su Chong's lifeless eyes changed when he heard his son defend him. Without trusting anyone to protect him, the thugs raised their clubs and charged, believing the house contained 2 easy victims, as every warning changed the future. Before any weapon reached Su Ming, his father moved with a speed his broken appearance had concealed. With his mother's death still unexplained, Su Chong placed himself between the clubs and his son, absorbing every impact without falling, while the first dungeon waited ahead. Then the former berserker released enough killing pressure to freeze the attackers in place. Before Jiang could arrange another trap, the professional thugs finally understood that the exhausted man before them had once been a genuine high-level combatant. As the countdown toward midnight ended, their confidence vanished, and Shen Yao's face emptied of color, with survival taking priority over pride. Su Chong ordered everyone out, and the intruders fled without waiting for a second warning. While Su Chong hid unbearable pain, the moment the door closed, he coughed bright blood across the floor, with old memories guiding every decision. Using even that fragment of strength, had torn open the hidden injuries, destroying him from within. As the family's silence grew heavier, Su Ming rushed forward, but his father pushed him away rather than reveal further weakness. With one loyal friend still worth saving, Su Chong locked himself inside his bedroom, leaving his son alone with guilt and renewed determination. While his father remained dangerously injured, the possibility of healing him became more than a distant wish. Before another ambush could succeed, Su Ming needed power, money, and information, all of which the hidden system could eventually provide. As the novice trial approached rapidly, he entered his room and watched the clock approach midnight, while the experience counter continued rising. Before midnight released the stored reward, the final seconds moved painfully slowly because his entire second life depended on the extraction working. While his second life gathered momentum, when midnight arrived, Su Ming commanded the system to release everything it had accumulated. Without wasting strength on empty arguments, nearly 40,000 experience points entered his personal reserve at once. As false friends exposed themselves again, that amount represented years of struggle in his previous life. Yet, the system had produced it within hours. With the system working beyond public sight, Su Ming laughed until his chest hurt, overwhelmed by the cruelty and generosity of the contrast. While the apartment remained emotionally frozen, he deliberately avoided raising his level immediately because appearing too powerful at school would invite dangerous questions. Without trusting anyone to protect him, experience could remain stored, allowing him to spend it only when the right moment arrived. As every warning changed the future, morning found him awake, energized, and ready to enter the dungeon where Wang Xiaoming had once died. With his mother's death still unexplained, at the Academy Plaza, Su Ming searched the gathering students and felt relief when his friend was absent. While the first dungeon waited ahead, the warning had apparently worked, proving that the future could be changed. Before Jiang could arrange another trap, Jiang Yongqing arrived with Shen Yao clinging to his arm, clearly expecting jealousy and emotional pain. As the countdown toward midnight ended, Su Ming saw only two betrayers congratulating themselves before their downfall, with survival taking priority over pride. He ignored them so completely that Jiang mistook indifference for silent heartbreak. While Su Chong hid unbearable pain, Mentor Jiang Ming began roll call and discovered Wang Xiaoming was the only missing participant, with old memories guiding every decision. After waiting briefly, the academy group departed with experienced mentors assigned to protect the beginners. As the family's silence grew heavier, during the ride, Jiang explained that the novice dungeon contained weak goblins and one slightly stronger boss. With one loyal friend still worth saving, the dungeon reset at midnight, creating fresh monsters and serious danger for anyone remaining inside. While his father remained dangerously injured, Su Ming already knew every rule because he had spent an entire miserable year farming this place before another ambush could succeed. At the entrance, school staff distributed basic equipment according to each awakened profession. As the novice trial approached rapidly, a mentor offered Su Ming a cheap staff, assuming all summoners required additional spirit power. Before midnight released the stored reward, Su Ming rejected it and requested a bow instead, drawing confused looks from teachers and open laughter from students. While his second life gathered momentum, Jiang Yongqing joked that a skillless necromancer might be better served by a kitchen knife. Without wasting strength on empty arguments, the mentor reluctantly handed Su Ming a common bow that provided a tiny agility increase. As false friends exposed themselves again, that weak weapon was enough because his real advantage remained hidden inside the system. With the system working beyond public sight, Su Ming then informed Jiang Ming that he would enter alone and accept responsibility for his own survival. While the apartment remained emotionally frozen, the mentor considered the decision suicidal, but his contempt prevented him from making a serious effort to intervene. Without trusting anyone to protect him, Jiang laughed loudly as Su Ming walked toward the portal, convinced the trash class was volunteering to die. As every warning changed the future, Ye Lingfei also separated from the academy group, accompanied by a powerful family guardian. with his mother's death still unexplained. Unlike Su Ming, she possessed enough status and protection that no mentor dared question her decision. While the first dungeon waited ahead, uniformed guards checked Su Ming's identification and warned that a level 1 necromancer had almost no chance alone. Before Jiang could arrange another trap, he thanked them for the concern and stepped through the swirling gate without hesitation. As the countdown toward midnight ended, the academy vanished, replaced by a damp forest twisted beneath unnatural darkness. With survival taking priority over pride, Su Ming gripped the common bow and moved among the trees until an ugly goblin lunged from the bushes. While Su Chong hid unbearable pain, the monster carried a rusted cleaver and approached confidently, sensing the weakness of a fresh beginner. With old memories guiding every decision, Su Ming opened his stored experience and issued the command he had waited all night to use. As the family's silence grew heavier, golden light erupted as he advanced beyond level 1. With one loyal friend still worth saving, he continued spending points until repeated pillars carried him directly to level 6. While his father remained dangerously injured, every level granted additional attributes, and Su Ming placed all of them into agility. Before another ambush could succeed, his speed rose until the goblin's movements seemed delayed and painfully obvious. As the novice trial approached rapidly, 3 arrows struck the creature before it understood that its helpless prey had transformed. Before midnight released the stored reward, the wounded goblin attempted to escape, but Su Ming caught it within 2 strides. While his second life gathered momentum, 2 more arrows ended the fight and produced the dungeon's tiny experience reward. Without wasting strength on empty arguments, the 5 points looked meaningless beside his system reserve. Yet, the corpse was priceless for another reason. As false friends exposed themselves again, Su Ming recovered his arrows, removed the monster crystal, and placed one hand against the dead goblin. With the system working beyond public sight, he remained perfectly still while the hidden necromancer function began reading the corpse, while the apartment remained emotionally frozen. A full minute passed before the class finally reported that necrotic information had been extracted, without trusting anyone to protect him. That delay explained why every previous necromancer had believed the ability did nothing, as every warning changed the future. No frightened beginner stayed touching a monster corpse for an entire minute during a dangerous dungeon run. With his mother's death still unexplained, Su Ming opened the summon interface and discovered the goblin had been permanently recorded. While the first dungeon waited ahead, he whispered a command, and a black vortex opened across the forest floor. Before Jiang could arrange another trap, a skeletal goblin crawled from the darkness, carrying the same crude weapon it had used while alive. As the countdown toward midnight ended, the summon was weak, but Su Ming laughed because the secret truly worked, with survival taking priority over pride. It cost no spirit, required no continuing mana, and remained saved even after being destroyed. While Su Chong hid unbearable pain, as long as Su Ming survived, he could summon the same soldier repeatedly without additional payment. While the dark forest concealed his growth, its strength depended on the original monster, rather than the necromancer's personal attributes. Beneath branches hiding his true position, for the first time, Su Ming understood exactly how terrifying his unique profession could become. Without giving the exhausted mage relief, his first undead soldier stood beside him, and the army that would shake the world had officially begun. As permanent soldiers gathered around him, Su Ming continued deeper into the forest with one skeleton guarding his side, with black portals answering every command. A second goblin charged soon afterward, but the undead soldier absorbed its attacks while Su Ming fired safely from range. While the common bow remained enough, the battle ended quickly, producing another crystal and another corpse ready for extraction, without consuming a single point of spirit. After one silent minute, the necromancer summoned his second permanent warrior. As the undead formation expanded silently, 2 skeletal guards transformed the dangerous forest into a controlled hunting ground. As the system reserve erased ordinary limits, their ability to fight without consuming his spirit made every new corpse a permanent expansion of combat power. Before stronger monsters noticed the army, Su Ming followed distant shrieks and discovered a pack of goblins surrounding 2 human figures. Before the midnight reset transformed everything, one was Ye Lingfei, whose silver hair and frozen expression were impossible to mistake. with the first boss still waiting deeper inside. The other was a middle-aged guardian dressed more like a businessman than a dungeon fighter, with every corpse becoming future strength. He warned Ye Lingfei that mercy toward monsters would only place her own life in danger, while Jiang remained unaware of the attacker. Before she could practice, the guardian produced a glowing blade and moved through the pack like a storm. Before official rescue teams entered, a single spinning technique cut down half the goblins before they could react. As the dungeon's danger steadily increased, 2 additional strikes finished the rest, demonstrating strength far beyond anyone permitted in a beginner trial. With revenge almost within reach, Ming remained hidden because a high-level stranger could kill him more easily than the monsters could. While the mutated timeline drifted from memory, Ye Lingfei's guardian led her away, leaving the corpses and crystals behind as worthless debris. While other students depended on teams, to Ming, that abandoned battlefield looked like a treasure vault. As each shattered skeleton returned again, he ordered his skeletons to remove the crystals while he extracted every corpse one by one. While the dark forest concealed his growth, 12 minutes later, black vortices opened across the clearing and more warriors climbed from the ground, beneath branches hiding his true position. 14 undead goblins now surrounded Ming, turning a lone beginner into the commander of a private squad. Without giving the exhausted mage relief, he spent the remaining daylight hunting continuously and expanding the army whenever another corpse became available. As permanent soldiers gathered around him, by sunset, 25 skeleton warriors marched behind him in disciplined silence, with black portals answering every command. Ming built a small fire and deliberately remained inside the dungeon after most students began retreating. While the common bow remained enough, midnight would reset the entire environment, creating more monsters and more chances to build his forces. Without consuming a single point of spirit, a wandering goblin approached the light and discovered 25 skeletons waiting around the flames. As the undead formation expanded silently, the creature survived less than a heartbeat before the undead hacked it apart. As the system reserve erased ordinary limits, Ming extracted the body and welcomed his 26th soldier into formation. Before stronger monsters noticed the army, then distant voices approached, forcing him to conceal both himself and the army. Before the midnight reset transformed everything, he climbed into the branches and dismissed every skeleton through silent black portals. With the first boss still waiting deeper inside, 3 people entered the clearing, led by the future traitor Ming hated most, with every corpse becoming future strength. Jiang Yongqing had brought 2 powerful guards into the beginner dungeon, guaranteeing his safety and rapid progress. While Jiang remained unaware of the attacker, 1 guard left to scout the perimeter, while the younger mage remained beside the spoiled heir. Before official rescue teams entered, Ming watched from above, feeling years of rage gather behind his calm expression. As the dungeon's dangers steadily increased, this opportunity had arrived earlier than expected, and revenge seemed close enough to touch. With revenge almost within reach, he silently summoned skeletons throughout the surrounding darkness, creating a complete ring around the campfire. While the mutated timeline drifted from memory, every undead warrior received 1 command: kill Jiang Yongqing. While other students depended on teams, the rustling bones finally alerted the level 10 mage protecting him. As each shattered skeleton returned again, Jiang dismissed the warning until pale figures began emerging from every direction. While the dark forest concealed his growth, he panicked when he realized that the novice dungeon supposedly contained only living goblins, beneath branches hiding his true position. The guard identified the enemies as low-level undead and promised they could not break his defense. Without giving the exhausted mage relief, Ming ordered the entire army forward without revealing his position. As permanent soldiers gathered around him, fireballs exploded through the darkness, shattering several skeletons with each impact. With black portals answering every command, the mage possessed overwhelming individual strength, but he could not move freely while protecting Jiang. While the common bow remained enough, every undead soldier ignored the guard whenever possible and rushed directly toward the terrified heir. Without consuming a single point of spirit, Jiang hid behind his protector, screaming orders while refusing to contribute anything himself. As the undead formation expanded silently, The guard slowly realized that destroyed skeletons were returning through new portals moments later. As the system reserve erased ordinary limits, he received no experience for defeating them, confirming that someone nearby was controlling artificial summons. Before stronger monsters noticed the army, Ming remained motionless in the tree, resummoning every fallen warrior without meaningful cost. Before the midnight reset transformed everything, the endless cycle drained the mage's stamina and forced him to remain exactly where Ming wanted, with the first boss still waiting deeper inside. When the pressure became unbearable, the guard activated a powerful area spell called Flame Burst, with every corpse becoming future strength. A blazing formation erupted beneath his feet and erased most of the surrounding skeletons, while Jiang remained unaware of the attacker. The spell preserved Jiang's life, but it also consumed a devastating amount of mana. Before official rescue teams entered, Ming immediately resummoned the army, forcing the exhausted mage to use Flame Burst a second time. As the dungeon's danger steadily increased, the forest shook from the explosion, warning Ming that the scouting guard would soon return. With revenge almost within reach, he had only one brief chance to finish Jiang before facing an enemy far above his level. While the mutated timeline drifted from memory, Ming drew the common bow and aimed through the branches at Jiang's exposed throat. While other students depended on teams, the first arrow crossed the clearing with almost no warning. As each shattered skeleton returned again, the exhausted mage shoved Jiang aside and took the projectile through his own arm. While the dark forest concealed his growth, Jiang crashed face first into the dirt and immediately cursed the man who had saved him. Beneath branches hiding his true position, Ming released 3 more arrows while both enemies remained disorganized. Without giving the exhausted mage relief, 2 were destroyed by hurried fire, but the third struck Jiang through the shoulder. As permanent soldiers gathered around him, the future betrayer screamed and collapsed, finally experiencing a fraction of the pain he had once caused. With black portals answering every command, skeletons surged toward him with blades raised for the finishing strike. While the common bow remained enough, one warrior reached Jiang and began bringing its weapon down toward his neck. Without consuming a single point of spirit, a spear flashed through the clearing and shattered the skeleton before the blade connected. As the undead formation expanded silently, the stronger guard had returned at the worst possible moment. As the system reserve erased ordinary limits, Ming abandoned the attack immediately and escaped through the trees using his extreme agility. Before stronger monsters noticed the army, the returning expert reached the firing position seconds later, but found only empty branches and a looted goblin corpse. Before the midnight reset transformed everything, Jiang demanded the attacker's identity while shaking from fear and rage. With the first boss still waiting deeper inside, the injured mage described an archer who commanded an apparently endless army of skeletons, with every corpse becoming future strength. The expert considered necromancy, then rejected the idea because no known beginner possessed that combination of powers. While Jiang remained unaware of the attacker, he concluded that a professional assassin from another faction had targeted Jiang. Before official rescue teams entered, that mistaken theory protected Ming's identity and forced the group to leave the dungeon early. As the dungeon's danger steadily increased, far away, Ming struck a tree in frustration after missing revenge by a single second. With revenge almost within reach, he refused to let anger control his next decision, because the returned guard could have killed him instantly. While the mutated timeline drifted from memory, greater power remained the only reliable solution to every enemy waiting outside. While other students depended on teams, Ming climbed into another tall tree and settled near the dungeon's deeper region. As each shattered skeleton returned again, he kept only 2 skeletons active and allowed exhaustion to pull him into a brief sleep. While the dark forest concealed his growth, at midnight, strange energy swept across the forest as the dungeon reset. Beneath branches hiding his true position, monsters returned in greater numbers. But Ming slept through the transformation. Without giving the exhausted mage relief, he awakened several minutes later and immediately opened the super system. As permanent soldiers gathered around him, a complete day had passed, allowing him to extract 86,400 additional experience points, with black portals answering every command. The number still felt unreal, despite the simple calculation behind it. While the common bow remained enough, Su Ming spent enough to rise from level 6 directly to level 9, without consuming a single point of spirit. His summon capacity expanded to 90, giving him room for an army several times larger than before. As the undead formation expanded silently, he saved the new attribute points until he understood what skill level 10 would provide. As the system reserve erased ordinary limits, a loud laugh escaped him and drew the attention of 3 goblins below. Before stronger monsters noticed the army, these monsters were different, carrying stronger bodies and displaying level 2 instead of level 1. Before the midnight reset transformed everything, the change should have been impossible inside a stable beginner dungeon. With the first boss still waiting deeper inside, Su Ming realized that the timeline was no longer following his memories perfectly, with every corpse becoming future strength. Whether the regression, the system, or another force caused the mutation remained unknown. While Jiang remained unaware of the attacker, the level 2 goblins destroyed his 2 guards and celebrated beneath the tree. Before official rescue teams entered, Su Ming answered by summoning the entire undead squad around them. As the dungeon's danger steadily increased, the 3 monsters froze when more than 20 skeletons appeared from every side. With revenge almost within reach, one command turned their confidence into a brief and brutal massacre. While the mutated timeline drifted from memory, Su Ming extracted their stronger information and added the first level 2 warriors to his collection. While other students depended on teams, their improved strength confirmed that the quality of his army would rise with the monsters he defeated. As each shattered skeleton returned again, a massive explosion sounded deeper in the dungeon, followed by distant human screams. Beneath the dark forest canopy, the beginner trial had changed into a death trap, and Su Ming moved toward the chaos without fear. Before another flame burst could land, the explosion came from an academy team surrounded by more than a dozen mutated goblins. Before the final ambush closed around him, a level 12 mage mentor struggled to protect 10 students, while additional monsters emerged from the trees. While terrified students searched for excuses, Su Ming watched from cover, remembering how many of those students had mocked him the previous day. While false accusations collapsed into panic, a stray goblin discovered his position, but several skeletons dragged it into the shadows and ended the threat. While Su Ming controlled the battlefield calmly, the commotion exposed Su Ming's silhouette to the trapped group. As the corrupt mentor lost control, Shen Yao recognized him immediately and accused him of leading the monsters toward them. As the undead tide returned repeatedly, her accusation made no sense, yet frightened students accepted it because blaming the necromancer felt convenient. As rusted blades delivered the verdict, the mentor cleared part of the battlefield and announced that Su Ming's supposed cowardice would be reported. Without offering mercy to planned murderers, Shen Yao promised to have him banned from the upcoming grand exam. Without allowing authority to save betrayal, Su Ming remembered missing that examination during his first life because her ambush placed him in a hospital. Without confusing regret with redemption, a wet blade suddenly punched through one student's chest, ending the argument with a scream. The mentor destroyed the attacking goblin, but the wounded student died before healing could help. Shen Yao's basic priest spell glowed across the corpse and accomplished nothing. The mentor cared less about the dead boy than the punishment awaiting him for losing a student. He immediately accepted Shen Yao's suggestion that Su Ming should receive the blame. The survivors repeated the lie until everyone shared one convenient version of events. More goblins attacked, and 2 additional students died during the chaotic fight. 3 deaths transformed the mentor's fear into desperation. He ordered Su Ming to surrender and claimed the necromancer had deliberately created the disaster. Shen Yao insulted Su Chong, describing Su Ming's injured father as a half-dead failure. The mentor recognized the name and accused the former berserker of cowardice during the mission that killed Su Ming's mother. Those insults burned hotter than any attack directed at Su Ming himself. Then Shen Yao proposed framing Su Ming for personally murdering the fallen students. The mentor hesitated only briefly before agreeing that murder would justify immediate execution. Remaining students accepted the conspiracy because admitting their own failures offered them nothing. Su Ming stepped from the darkness with his bow already drawn. He told them that nobody would leave the forest after choosing to play with his life. Combat status revealed his current level, and every mocking voice stopped instantly. The supposedly useless necromancer had reached level 9 within 2 days of awakening. Shen Yao stared, as though the person before her had violated the laws of the world. The mentor refused to believe the display and attacked with a fireball. Su Ming summoned a skeleton directly between himself and the spell. Flames shattered the undead warrior, but the necromancer remained completely unharmed. Their confusion deepened because the trash class had suddenly demonstrated both impossible growth and a working summon. Su Ming placed his bow away and slid both hands into his pockets. Then black vortices opened throughout the forest behind him. 10 skeletons emerged, followed by 20, then nearly 30 armed warriors. The red glow inside their empty sockets erased the last traces of confidence from the group. Su Ming ordered the undead army to kill everyone who had agreed to frame him. The mentor rallied his students and destroyed the first wave with another flame burst. Seeing skeletons collapse gave the frightened beginners enough courage to fight back. Within minutes, the original army had been reduced to scattered bones. The exhausted mentor laughed and asked what Su Ming intended to do without his pets. Shen Yao urged him to finish the necromancer before another surprise appeared. Su Ming asked why she seemed so desperate to watch someone who had once treated her kindly die. She replied that his kindness had been voluntary and therefore meant nothing to her. Shen Yao believed Jiang Yongqing would reward her with status, protection, and luxury once Su Ming disappeared. Su Ming warned that trusting that future would become her final mistake. A second command reopened the portals, returning every destroyed skeleton to the battlefield. The mentor's smile disappeared when the supposedly dead army surrounded them again. They fought desperately, but each fallen warrior reappeared moments later without weakening Su Ming. The endless cycle revealed the true horror of a necromancer whose summons required no continuing mana. The mentor realized that allowing Su Ming to escape would create an enemy powerful enough to destroy him later. He used Flame Burst to clear a path and charged directly toward the summoner. Without his protection, the remaining students became easy prey for the surrounding skeletons. Their screams followed the mentor as he ignored them and focused entirely on reaching Su Ming. A point-blank fireball crossed the distance between them. Su Ming moved aside so quickly that the flames passed through empty air. His agility exceeded the mentor's speed, destroying the traditional weakness of a summoning profession. Fresh skeletons appeared directly in the attacker's path, forcing him to smash through body after body. Su Ming never expected the low-level warriors to win through strength. They only needed to consume stamina, interrupt spells, and buy time for another ambush. Behind the mentor, Shen Yao and the other students began begging Su Ming for mercy. He remembered that they had planned his execution moments earlier and offered them nothing. The mentor demanded that Su Ming stop running and face him like a real fighter. Su Ming answered by raising the bow and firing, while the exhausted mage struggled to breathe. The mentor destroyed 2 arrows with weak fireballs and focused entirely on the attack ahead. A skeleton emerged behind him and drove a rusted blade deep into his back. The wounded mage collapsed, exposing white bone through the terrible injury. 2 more skeletons pinned him to the ground before he could recover. He threatened Su Ming with academy punishment, legal execution, and revenge from powerful allies. Su Ming lowered the bow, allowing the dying man to believe those threats had worked. Relief softened the mentor's face for one fatal moment. A skeleton drove its weapon through his spine, while the others attacked from every side. The mentor died staring upward, unable to understand why his authority had failed. Su Ming observed that an arrow would have connected him directly to the murder. Rusty goblin weapons and monster-filled woods would create a far more believable explanation. He turned toward the surviving students, who had gathered around Shen Yao in terror. The undead closed in and eliminated them one after another. Shen Yao remained alone among the bodies, shaking so violently she could barely speak. She promised to accept Su Ming's love and become his girlfriend immediately. When that failed, she blamed Jiang Yongqing and claimed she had been manipulated. Su Ming laughed at the sudden devotion she discovered, only after losing every advantage. He ignored her and began extracting the stronger goblins killed during the battle. His skeletons gathered monster crystals, while Shen Yao watched the growing pile with undisguised greed. Even surrounded by corpses, she remained more interested in money than remorse. After every extraction finished, Su Ming's permanent army expanded far beyond its earlier size. He allowed Shen Yao to believe she had been spared and marched her deeper into the forest. 5 level 2 goblins eventually blocked their path. Shen Yao smiled confidently, Expecting the undead army to protect her like a valuable companion, Su Ming instead ordered her to step forward and perform the combat role she had received. The priest complained that fighting monsters was unfair and tried to cling playfully to his clothing. He pushed her onto the ground and withdrew every skeleton from the immediate area. Only then did Shen Yao understand that she had not been forgiven. The goblins advanced while she screamed for Su Ming to rescue her. He watched from a safe distance, refusing to return kindness to someone who had arranged his beating and execution. Her pleas became curses, and the curses eventually faded into silence. Su Ming eliminated the weakened goblins afterward and left Shen Yao's body behind without another glance. The revenge brought no joy, but it permanently removed one traitor from his second life. More importantly, the battle proved that the necromancer class could overwhelm enemies far above its supposed rank. Su Ming dismissed most of the expanded army to avoid exposing his full strength to powerful people inside the dungeon, with the forest changing around him. His next objective became finding the mutated dungeon boss. Near the dungeon entrance, officials detected an abnormal energy surge and confirmed that every ordinary monster had risen to level 2. The Saber Tiger Guild immediately entered to evacuate students before the beginner trial became a complete massacre. Su Ming remained unaware of the official response as he moved toward the deepest sounds of fighting. He passed frightened teams retreating from the center and ignored their questions about why a solo student was advancing. Another camp belonged to North River Academy, where mentor Jiang Ming lectured survivors beside a fire. Su Ming scanned the familiar faces and froze when he saw Wang Xiaoming among them. His friend had ignored the warning or arrived late, recreating the conditions surrounding his original death. Su Ming stayed hidden, trying to understand which event would kill Wang this time. Later, Wang left the camp alone and walked directly beneath Su Ming's tree. The reason was embarrassingly ordinary, but a broken branch revealed another presence moving through the darkness. A shadow appeared behind Wang with a dagger positioned for a silent killing strike. Su Ming shouted a warning and fired before the assassin could complete the attack. The arrow forced the hidden student backward and gave Wang enough time to draw his sword. The attacker was Hua Haitao, a classmate whose assassin profession had made him dangerously confident. He admitted that Wang possessed treasure valuable enough to justify murder. Then, Hua entered stealth, disappearing from ordinary sight while preparing another strike. Wang ordered Su Ming to stand behind him, still believing the necromancer needed protection. That instinctive loyalty confirmed why Su Ming had risked changing fate to save him. Su Ming dropped from the tree and allowed his level 9 status to become visible. Wang stared in disbelief, while the invisible assassin stopped moving somewhere nearby. Black portals opened, and 71 skeleton warriors marched into the clearing. The army formed 2 rings, one shielding the friends and another sealing every possible escape route. Hua's stealth concealed his body, but it could not hide the fear overwhelming his control. A strange smell and a spreading puddle revealed the exact shadow where he was hiding. Before Su Ming attacked, mentor Jiang Ming approached after hearing the disturbance. The arrival forced everyone to conceal what had truly happened. Hua's stealth expired, leaving him pale and trembling in front of the suspicious mentor. He claimed an urgent physical problem had caused the strange scene, drawing laughter from nearby students. Jiang accepted the humiliating explanation because neither victim exposed the attempted murder. He mocked Su Ming for somehow surviving and ordered the others back toward camp. After the mentor left, Su Ming demanded to know what treasure had motivated Hua. Wang produced a storage ring and a valuable upgrade stone taken from a weakened boss. The stone could instantly grant a level, making it worth enough money to inspire murder. Wang offered both rewards to Su Ming as payment for saving his life. Su Ming accepted the storage ring, but refused to take the upgrade stone from his loyal friend. He warned that carrying such treasure without using it would attract more assassins. Wang understood the danger and crushed the stone immediately. A pillar of light raised him to level 2, removing the prize Hua had intended to steal. Hua watched a fortune disappear and looked more devastated than relieved. Movement spread through the trees before Su Ming could decide what punishment the assassin deserved. Hua vanished into stealth and escaped while Wang ran to warn the academy camp. Su Ming refused to join them, trusting his speed and undead army more than the mentor's protection. The small storage ring provided enough space to carry crystals, equipment, and future loot safely. Monster eyes began appearing throughout the surrounding forest as the mutated dungeon entered a full riot. Su Ming summoned 71 warriors and ordered a direct advance through the gathering goblins. His strategy required no complicated formation or risky personal attack. A wall of undead simply crushed everything standing between him and stronger prey. 13 level 2 goblins fell quickly, and their information expanded the permanent collection. Additional packs continued arriving, allowing Su Ming to farm bodies, crystals, and experience simultaneously. Within an hour, 35 more monsters had been eliminated. He deleted weaker level 1 records and replaced them with stronger level 2 skeletons. Soon his summon capacity was completely filled with 90 level 2 warriors. The upgraded army looked more disciplined, durable, and dangerous than the first fragile skeletons. Across the dungeon, student teams collapsed beneath the unexpected monster surge. Mentors attempted emergency retreats while screams and explosions echoed between the trees. Su Ming heard someone shouting about a level 5 monster and moved toward the battlefield. A gigantic goblin boss stood above a destroyed team, swinging a heavy cleaver through desperate survivors. Their level 10 instructor had already fallen after exhausting himself protecting weaker students. Su Ming waited until the final victims were gone, unwilling to reveal himself by entering a hopeless rescue. The boss and 20 goblins turned toward him after finishing the fallen team. Su Ming smiled when the monsters attempted to intimidate him with numbers. Nearly 100 skeleton warriors emerged behind the necromancer and transformed the clearing into a battlefield of bone. The goblin pack charged, but the undead wave erased the smaller monsters almost immediately. Only the level 5 boss remained strong enough to shatter skeletons with every swing. Su Ming ordered constant replacements, forcing the creature into a battle of attrition it could never win. He fired an arrow into one eye, driving the boss into a berserk frenzy. The wounded monster doubled its speed and strength, smashing large gaps through the surrounding army. Fresh skeletons filled every opening before the boss could escape. Dozens of blades slowly covered its body with deep wounds. The berserk state consumed the monster's remaining strength until its knees finally collapsed. Su Ming's undead soldiers continued attacking until the enormous body stopped moving. The kill granted a huge experience reward and permanently added 5 points to Su Ming's strength. A refined heavy cleaver dropped from the boss, providing valuable strength and constitution bonuses. Su Ming stored the weapon and removed a glowing level 5 crystal from the creature's skull. Then he placed one hand against the corpse and began the most important extraction yet. After 1 minute, the necromancer interface confirmed that the boss had been permanently recorded. A larger black vortex opened, and a towering skeleton climbed from the darkness. The boss summon carried a massive cleaver and possessed bones far stronger than the ordinary warriors. Its original berserk skill had also survived the extraction process. Su Ming now controlled a level 5 commander whose strength made the remaining skeletons look like toys. The discovery proved that powerful monsters could retain special abilities after death. Every boss in the world had just become a potential officer in Su Ming's future army. Official rescue teams entered the clearing moments later and found him standing beside the fallen creature. The captain asked whether Su Ming had killed the level 5 boss himself. Su Ming displayed the dropped cleaver, but claimed the monster was already near death when he fired the final arrow. The explanation matched the projectile still buried inside the boss's ruined eye. Officials accepted the story and allowed him to keep every reward. They ordered Su Ming to evacuate because the mutated dungeon could no longer be considered safe. He wanted to remain and hunt additional bosses, but arguing with armed authorities would reveal too much. 2 guards escorted him through the forest while killing stray goblins before he could claim them. At the portal, Su Ming considered slipping away and returning after the guards turned around. Their sincere concern made the plan difficult, and they waited until he actually crossed the exit. Sunrise replaced the dark forest as Su Ming returned to the crowded real world. The beginner who entered as a mocked level 1 necromancer had left with level 9 power, 90 soldiers, and a boss summon. Yet everyone outside still believed he had barely survived through extraordinary luck. Outside the portal, guild members, teachers, families, and officials gathered around the surviving students. Su Ming spotted Wang Xiaoming waving from North River Academy's designated area. Mentor Jiang Ming looked genuinely stunned that the supposedly helpless solo runner had returned alive. His protected team had suffered casualties despite experienced supervision and emergency rescue from a powerful guild. Su Ming ignored the disbelief and asked whether Jiang Yongqing had survived his injuries. Wang explained that Jiang had already been taken home after claiming a monster ambushed him. Before they could discuss more, Ye Lingfei emerged with her family guardian. She openly displayed level 4, causing the entire crowd to erupt with admiration. Teachers praised her as the fastest beginner in academy history. Only Wang knew that Su Ming had already reached level 9 and surpassed the celebrated genius completely. He started protesting the unfair attention, but Su Ming covered his mouth before the secret escaped. Public fame would attract guilds, governments, enemies, and families powerful enough to control an unprotected student. Until he possessed greater security, being underestimated remained more valuable than applause. A soulful ringtone suddenly echoed across the silent gathering and drew careless laughter from several students. The phone belonged to Lu Shuin, vice president of the Tiger Sword Guild and a feared local powerhouse. Every laugh died when the suited man answered with a predatory expression. His face changed during the call, revealing that something even more serious than the mutated dungeon had occurred. Lu Shuin left immediately, confirming that the city was entering another unexpected crisis. Mentors continued waiting for missing teams until officials finally admitted that anyone still inside was unlikely to survive. North River Academy returned with barely more than half of its original group. Principal Gao Baosong met them in the courtyard, carrying visible grief and urgent new information. He reminded the survivors that the dungeon anomaly was not their fault. Then he announced that a secret realm had appeared within the city. Authorities had tested the entrance and discovered that nobody above level 10 could enter. Because of that restriction, the realm would become the final examination for local academies. Students reacted with fear because secret realms normally killed experienced professionals, not newly awakened teenagers. Participation remained voluntary, but survivors would receive the right to choose among the city's strongest guilds. Anyone refusing could repeat the academic year or pursue a separate guild assessment later. The announcement created hesitation until Principal Gao revealed one final rumor. The secret realm might contain water of life, a legendary medicine capable of restoring devastating injuries. Su Ming immediately thought about Su Chong coughing blood after protecting him. Money alone could not guarantee access to such medicine, because powerful factions purchased every known supply. The secret realm offered a direct chance to restore his father's ruined body and recover the truth about the old mission. Su Ming stepped forward before any celebrated genius made a decision. He volunteered to enter, stunning teachers who still considered necromancy a failed profession. Mentor Jiang warned that the danger would exceed anything encountered inside the mutated beginner dungeon. Su Ming confirmed his choice without hesitation. High risk no longer frightened someone who gained experience every second and commanded an immortal army. Other students whispered that the fallen genius had developed a death wish. A nervous classmate attempted to mock Su Ming beside Hua Haitao. The assassin reacted with panic because he had personally seen 71 skeletons surrounding him in the forest. Hua shoved the classmate away and begged not to be associated with another insult. Principal Gao misread that reaction as confidence and publicly enrolled Hua in the secret realm examination. The assassin wanted to refuse, but pride and attention trapped him into accepting. 2 additional students volunteered, giving North River Academy 4 representatives. Wang Xiaoming wisely remained among the crowd. Understanding that level 2 offered little protection inside a secret realm, Principal Gao promised mentors would help the volunteers gain levels during the 2 remaining days. Su Ming rejected the offer because ordinary dungeon training would contribute almost nothing beside his automatic experience. Zheng mocked the decision, suggesting that Su Ming's true talent involved escaping danger. Principal Gao accepted anyway, privately suspecting that the necromancer was hiding something significant. Su Ming left the academy and headed toward the treasure pavilion to convert monster loot into useful equipment. The national trading chain bought crystals, weapons, and materials from professional hunters. A young employee named Lin Anqi welcomed him and expected a routine beginner transaction. Su Ming emptied the storage ring across a private table. 25 level 1 crystals and more than 100 level 2 crystals formed a glowing pile before her. Lin Anqi stared at the mountain of loot, unable to connect it with the newly awakened student sitting calmly across from her. Most beginners returned with only a few crystals after working inside protected teams. Su Ming claimed he had hunted them personally and asked for a direct calculation. The ordinary crystals produced more than 60,000 win. Then he added the level 5 boss crystal, shocking the employee a second time. Lin Anqi offered another 20,000 yuan, bringing the total sale above 80,000. For the first time across 2 lives, Su Ming possessed enough money to purchase real equipment. He explained that he needed a ranged weapon because close combat remained dangerous despite his growing speed. Lin Anqi guided him through the pavilion's bow collection. A refined bow offered a small agility increase at a reasonable price. A rare bow offered more speed, but consumed most of his new fortune. Neither impressed Su Ming after he compared their limitations with the dangers ahead. Then he noticed a simple weapon called the Void Bow. Its agility bonus was modest, but the special effect created energy arrows directly from the string. The user would never need to carry ammunition, recover projectiles, or interrupt combat to refill a quiver. That function perfectly matched an agile necromancer who fought from behind endless summons. Lin Anqi allowed him to test the weapon inside a reinforced range. Su Ming drew the invisible string and released 3 golden arrows within a single second. All 3 targets shattered under the rapid impacts. The employee caught a glimpse of his hidden level during the test and nearly forgot how to speak. A level 9 necromancer using a bow contradicted every profession guide she had ever studied. Su Ming purchased the void bow for almost his entire balance. The decision left him nearly broke again, but transformed his ranged combat permanently. Before he departed, Lin Anqi gave him a personal business card normally reserved for important customers. She understood that a beginner carrying this much loot could become one of the pavilion's most valuable future partners. Su Ming accepted the contact and returned to the street beneath the setting sun. He spent his remaining money on meat, fish, and groceries his family had gone without for years. The heavy bags felt more satisfying than the crystals, because they represented an immediate improvement to daily life. On the way home, several familiar thugs stepped from another narrow alley. They were the same men who had followed Shen Yao to his house before Awakening Day ended. This time, Su Ming did not run. He continued walking while the attackers formed a wall across the passage. A black portal opened silently behind them. The level 5 goblin boss skeleton emerged carrying its enormous cleaver. One thug turned, saw the towering undead, and failed to warn the others before the weapon moved. The skeleton eliminated the group with brutal speed, leaving no chance for resistance or pursuit. Su Ming stored the bodies inside the ring and dismissed the summon. When he reached home, the alley behind him looked empty, except for dark stains on the ground. The weak student who once needed his injured father to protect him could now erase professional criminals with one thought. Inside the apartment, television reports described the dungeon catastrophe and the newly discovered secret realm. Su Chong sat before the flickering screen, waiting for his son to return. The next conversation would determine whether the broken berserker saw a reckless child or the beginning of an impossible power. Su Chong asked whether the novice dungeon shown on television was the same place his son had entered. Su Ming confirmed that every common monster had risen to level 2 and multiplied beyond the normal limits. His father stared at the casualty report and called his return an extraordinary piece of luck. Then Su Chong mentioned the secret realm examination and insisted that participation was voluntary. He offered to contact an old acquaintance who might arrange a quiet guild position instead. The proposal treated Su Ming as someone who needed to hide forever, rather than someone capable of changing their future. Su Ming calmly revealed that he had already registered and would enter in 2 days. The television remote struck his chest as Su Chong exploded from the sofa. The broken berserker demanded that he cancel before an unknown realm swallowed him like it had swallowed better warriors. Su Ming answered with the reason his father could not dismiss. Water of life might exist inside, and he intended to bring it home. The name froze Su Chong's anger, because both men understood what the medicine could repair. Hope lasted only a moment before bitterness returned to his voice. He asked what strength a mocked necromancer possessed to compete against elite heirs and trained guild teams. Su Ming had wanted his growth to become a later surprise, but argument left no safer choice. He stopped suppressing the interface and projected his status into the dim living room. The display identified him as a level 9 necromancer, only 2 days after awakening. Su Chong rubbed his eyes and leaned closer, convinced exhaustion had distorted his vision. The impossible number remained unchanged. Elite families spent fortunes, private dungeons, and teams of experts to produce growth that fast. A poor student from an injured household should have required months or years to approach the same level. Suchong asked how his son had broken every known rule of progression. Ming refused to expose the full system, explaining only that the necromancer profession contained a hidden path. He had shown enough to prove that entering the secret realm was not meaningless suicide. Suchong's fear changed direction, from concern about monsters to concern about powerful humans. If the city learned about Ming's speed, factions might recruit, control, study, or eliminate him. His father urged him to conceal the truth until he possessed enough power to protect himself. Ming agreed because he had already reached the same conclusion outside the dungeon. Even so, Suchong continued asking him to abandon the water of life. The medicine was not worth losing the only family either of them had left. Ming refused, reminding his father that the damaged body had already coughed blood from one brief use of strength. Waiting quietly meant watching Suchong decline until no medicine could help. The argument carried years of love disguised beneath anger and stubbornness. Suchong looked guilty because his son was entering danger specifically to repair consequences from an older generation. Ming stopped him before an apology could become another painful silence. He said, shouting, "Guilt or punishment would not change the decision." Then black vortices opened around the cramped kitchen. Pale skulls and rusted weapons began emerging before Ming immediately closed the portals again. There was not enough space to summon the full army, but the glimpse was sufficient. Suchong staggered backward, overwhelmed by fear, wonder, and recognition. The supposedly skillless necromancer commanded creatures that required no ordinary summoning ritual. Ming confirmed that the skeletons were permanent soldiers saved from defeated monsters. For the first time since the dungeon tragedy, Suchong laughed with genuine pride. Tears gathered in the eyes of a man who had spent years believing his family had no future. That night, father and son prepared dinner from the groceries Ming had purchased. The meal carried none of the cold silence that usually filled their apartment. Suchong offered practical advice about secret realms, enemy teams, supplies, and the danger of trusting strangers. Every lesson came from experience earned before his body was destroyed. Whenever Ming asked about the realm's previous appearance, his father avoided the subject. The refusal suggested that the old disaster, Ming's mother, and the current realm might share a connection. Suchong eventually stated that his son was not yet qualified to hear the truth. Ming accepted the answer outwardly, while turning it into another reason to grow stronger. Midnight approached, bringing the system's next daily extraction. Ming returned to his room and watched the final seconds disappear. The super system released another 86,400 experience points into his reserve. His level 9 requirement looked tiny beside the new total. Ming issued the command and advanced to level 10 beneath a pillar of white light. Level 10 marked the first major threshold for every awakened profession. Most classes unlocked a defining combat skill, but no reliable record described what a necromancer would receive. A new notification appeared and announced the skill called Death's Curse. When applied to an ally, it increased every attribute by 5%. When applied to an enemy, it reduced every attribute by the same amount. The same ability could strengthen an undead army while weakening whatever stood against it. For a commander controlling dozens of permanent soldiers, the percentage effect multiplied across an entire battlefield. Ming immediately spent experience to raise Death's Curse to level 2. The cost was steep, but the effect doubled from 5% to 10%. He continued to level 3, accepting an even larger experience payment. The upgraded curse now created a much greater swing between allies and enemies. Within one night, Ming had gained a defining skill and improved it beyond most beginners' resources. The super system produced another notification after recognizing the level 10 milestone. Its current basic stage could be upgraded to an intermediate stage by spending additional experience. Ming stared at the offer, realizing that idle experience might only be the system's first function. He lacked enough points after upgrading Death's Curse, so the next system evolution would have to wait. The delay did not reduce his excitement. A stronger system could increase the earning rate, unlock new extraction rules, or reveal entirely different abilities. Ming opened his complete status to understand the growth already achieved. His level had reached 10, the maximum allowed inside the secret realm examination. Strength had improved from boss rewards and equipment. While spirit and physique remained modest, agility remained his dominant attribute. preserving the survival strategy that kept the summoner untouchable. His collection contained almost 90 level 2 skeleton warriors and 1 level 5 boss warrior. Death's Curse provided the first true class skill ever recorded for his unique profession. Ming tested the buff on himself inside the bedroom. Black light flashed across his body, and every movement immediately felt sharper. He timed the effect and discovered it lasted approximately 3 minutes. The energy cost was low enough to cast repeatedly without exhausting him. Because the skill increased attributes by percentage, stronger allies would receive even greater benefits. The level 5 boss skeleton under Death's Curse could become far more dangerous than its original living form. Ming placed every remaining free attribute point into agility. His speed rose to a level normally associated with specialized fighters, far above level 10. An enemy who could not touch the necromancer would be forced to battle an endlessly returning army. That combination turned his unusual build into a complete survival system. Ming finally slept, knowing that time would continue producing experience even while he rested. For the first time, sleep was no longer lost training time. Every quiet second carried him closer to healing his father, exposing the old truth, and destroying Jiang Yongqing. The next 2 days passed without another dungeon run, because ordinary beginner monsters no longer justified risking injury, delays, or unwanted attention before the examination. Ming remained home. But inactivity no longer meant stagnation, because the super system continued converting every quiet second into future power. Each full day generated 86,400 experience, regardless of whether he trained, ate, slept, or argued with his father. That rule separated his growth from every limitation governing ordinary awakened people, including stamina, monster availability, team access, and competition over dungeon kills. Most students spent the preparation period following mentors into controlled hunting zones, desperately trying to gain one level before entering the secret realm. Ming avoided those groups because revealing level 10 would invite questions, while hiding his level inside a team would prevent him from using meaningful power. He reviewed the beginner dungeon mentally, identifying every moment when knowledge from his first life had protected him from mistakes or hidden betrayal. Regression gave him information, but the mutated monsters proved that memories could become unreliable once his new choices changed the timeline. The secret realm therefore required caution instead of blind confidence, because no remembered guide could guarantee that enemies, treasures, or exits remained identical. Suchong repeatedly emphasized that secret realms followed internal rules different from ordinary dungeons, and misunderstanding one rule could kill even experienced professionals. Unlike stable public dungeons, secret realms could contain unique environments, hidden missions, territorial effects, intelligent monsters, and rewards that appeared only once. Ming listened carefully whenever his father discussed general survival. Even though the older man refused to explain his personal connection with the realm, he learned to treat human teams as potential threats, especially when rare medicine or life-changing treasure could reward betrayal more heavily than cooperation. The lesson needed little explanation after Jiang Yongqing, Shen Yao, Hua Haitao, and the corrupt mentor had already proven how cheaply people valued loyalty. Ming inspected the void bow repeatedly, becoming familiar with its balance, energy string, and immediate projectile formation before entering another lethal environment. The weapon removed his dependence on physical arrows, allowing him to fire continuously while skeletons created distance and controlled every approach. His storage ring remained small, so he planned to prioritize medicine, unique equipment, rare materials, and anything connected to the water of life. Ordinary monster crystals held value, but no amount of common loot mattered more than restoring Suchong's damaged body and uncovering his mother's fate. The level 5 boss skeleton became the center of his current army, possessing enough strength to challenge enemies that would instantly destroy ordinary summons. Its berserk skill created a temporary surge, while Death's Curse could raise those enhanced attributes again without consuming the creature's own resources. Ming understood that combining percentage bonuses with naturally powerful summons would produce greater returns than strengthening weak soldiers one at a time. The level 2 skeletons still mattered because their numbers could surround targets, exhaust defenders, block projectiles, search terrain, and repeatedly return after destruction. An enemy might erase 10 warriors with one spell, but repeating that spell against 90 replacements would drain even a much stronger opponent. Su Ming's extreme agility completed the formation by preventing assassins or fast fighters from bypassing the army and reaching its commander. His personal damage remained limited compared with dedicated warriors. Yet the void bow allowed constant pressure from positions no enemy could safely ignore. Death's curse added another layer, weakening a chosen enemy while strengthening Su Ming or his most dangerous summon during decisive exchanges. He tested the skill's duration more than once and confirmed that its low cost supported repeated use during extended battles. The curse did not require complicated chanting, allowing Su Ming to apply it without sacrificing the speed that defined his survival strategy. Most newly awakened students depended on one obvious ability, but Su Ming now possessed automatic experience, permanent summons, extreme speed, and battlefield-wide stat manipulation. None of those advantages had reached their final form, because the super system still waited for enough experience to enter its intermediate stage. Su Ming resisted spending blindly, recognizing that a future system upgrade could provide more value than another immediate improvement to a skill already powerful. Even so, the approaching secret realm forced him to balance long-term growth against the need to survive whatever appeared inside. A dead genius could not benefit from saved experience, while careless spending could delay an ability capable of changing every future calculation. The tension made each point meaningful, despite the absurd amount arriving automatically, because opportunities expanded faster than his reserve could satisfy them. Su Chong watched his son prepare with a mixture of pride and anxiety, occasionally beginning a warning before deciding Su Ming already understood. Their relationship remained awkward after years of silence, but the apartment no longer felt like a place occupied by two unrelated ghosts. Simple conversations returned during meals, often beginning with equipment or monsters before drifting toward memories neither man could discuss comfortably. Su Ming never pressed his father too aggressively about the old dungeon after seeing how quickly the subject closed every opening between them. Instead, he treated strength as the key that would eventually make Su Chong consider him qualified to hear the complete truth. The water of life remained the immediate objective, because information would mean nothing if his father's injuries reached an irreversible stage first. Official news repeated the secret realm announcement constantly, turning the examination into the most discussed event across Jiang City. Guilds prepared scouting teams composed entirely of eligible low-level members, while wealthy families equipped talented heirs with expensive protective items. Su Ming possessed neither guild sponsorship nor a private guardian, but his system gave him resources no public organization could measure. The city's attention created another reason to conceal necromancy, since observers would record every visible skill and evaluate every promising participant. If 90 skeletons appeared before thousands of witnesses, Su Ming's life would change immediately, whether he welcomed that attention or not. He therefore planned to reveal only enough power to survive, secure the medicine, and prevent anyone from identifying the true limits of his army. The strategy depended on terrain, because confined spaces could hide summons while open areas made the scale of his profession impossible to disguise. Su Ming considered sending skeletons ahead as disposable scouts, using their destruction to identify traps without risking living teammates. The permanent records meant losing a summon temporarily cost nothing, making information gathering another advantage. Normal parties could never imitate safely. He could also divide the army into independent groups, though controlling too many distant battles might create problems he had not tested. Because the source of each skeleton was a monster, different future summons could eventually provide ranged attacks, defense, healing, flight, or specialized senses. The level 5 boss retaining Berserk proved that extracted soldiers could preserve abilities, turning monster diversity into a permanent library of combat options. Su Ming imagined what would happen after recording creatures far above beginner rank, then forced himself to stop before ambition weakened his caution. At level 10, one careless encounter with a truly powerful enemy could still end his second life before the army became legendary. The memory of falling into the monster horde remained useful, because it prevented confidence from becoming the same arrogance that blinded Jiang Yongqing. Jiang had believed wealth, guards, and a mage profession made betrayal safe. Yet one hidden necromancer nearly killed him during his first dungeon trip. Su Ming intended to finish that revenge eventually, but entering the secret realm primarily for hatred would disrespect the opportunity to heal his father. He separated every goal clearly. Survive first, locate water of life second, collect valuable corpses and rewards third, and expose enemies only when necessary. That order gave him a stable path through uncertainty. Even if the realm's internal situation differed completely from anything Suchong remembered, Wang Xiaoming contacted him during the preparation period, still confused about why Su Ming refused recognition after displaying impossible strength in private. Su Ming repeated that secrecy protected both of them, especially while Wang remained too weak to survive attention from powerful factions. The loyal friend accepted the explanation and promised not to reveal the skeleton army, level 9 status, or events involving Hua Haitao. That promise mattered, because Wang was now the only classmate Su Ming trusted with even part of the truth. The upgrade stone had raised Wang to level 2, but Su Ming still felt relieved that he had not volunteered for the secret realm. Saving his friend once did not guarantee another rescue inside an unknown place where teams could be separated without warning. Hua Haitao, meanwhile, would enter, because Principal Gao had publicly trapped him into representing the academy after misunderstanding his terrified behavior. Su Ming expected the assassin to avoid him whenever possible, since the memory of 71 surrounding skeletons had already shattered Hua's confidence. Ye Lingfei would likely enter with resources prepared by her family, although the level cap prevented her powerful guardian from following inside. Her rare Ice Mage class made her dangerous despite limited experience, and Su Ming refused to underestimate someone backed by elite knowledge. Jiang Yongqing's participation remained uncertain after the shoulder injury and failed ambush, but Su Ming assumed the traitor's family would protect his reputation somehow. Whether Jiang entered or stayed outside, the unfinished revenge continued waiting beyond the current examination. Su Ming checked the experience counter regularly, watching thousands of points gather without requiring a single command from him. The system never slowed, paused, or asked whether he deserved the reward, making time itself more dependable than any human promise. Every hour produced 3,600 points, enough to represent hundreds of beginner monsters killed without rest or competition. Every night produced a reserve that could transform levels, skills, or system functions depending on the decision made after extraction. That flexibility mattered as much as the quantity, because Su Ming could adapt spending after learning what challenge stood directly ahead. A traditional genius committed resources before entering battle, while Su Ming could preserve experience and unlock growth at the moment it became necessary. The secret realm level restriction created one limitation: advancing beyond level 10 before entry would disqualify him completely. For that reason, additional points had to remain stored or strengthen skills without changing his displayed level. Death's Curse became the obvious short-term investment, because increasing its percentage improved Su Ming every summon and every enemy engagement simultaneously. Still, he waited until the examination morning to decide, allowing the maximum possible reserve to accumulate before making the final purchase. Suchong prepared supplies quietly, checking clothing, food, and basic necessities, even though Su Ming had not asked for help. The actions exposed a father's concern more honestly than the angry warnings or awkward attempts at encouragement. Su Ming accepted the assistance without teasing him, understanding that allowing Suchong to contribute made the danger slightly easier to endure. Neither discussed the possibility that only one of them might return to this apartment after the examination. Instead, they focused on practical details and allowed determination to cover the fear neither wanted to admit aloud. On the night before departure, Su Ming slept without summoning guards because Suchong remained awake in the living room longer than usual. The injured berserker had protected him once by reopening fatal wounds, and now Su Ming intended to return with the medicine that ended that sacrifice. Morning approached while the experience counter continued climbing, carrying the necromancer toward another decision that ordinary students could never imagine. The alarm waited beside his bed, the void bow rested inside storage, and 90 permanent soldiers remained silent within the summon interface. When the examination day finally arrived, Su Ming would enter at the allowed level limit with power that no official assessment had detected. The examination morning began with an alarm cutting through the quiet room after 2 days of deliberate rest and uninterrupted experience accumulation. Su Ming reached toward the clock with closed eyes, silenced it, and sat upright while his mind shifted immediately from sleep to preparation. Unlike other candidates, He had not spent the night recovering from forced leveling sessions, injuries, or exhausting mentor drills. The super system had worked continuously while his body remained safe, producing another mountain of experience without consuming food, stamina, medicine, or dungeon access. Across the 2 preparation days, 172,800 points had accumulated from time alone. Combined with the previous reserve, Ming now controlled more than 200,000 experience, while remaining exactly level 10. That balance represented tens of thousands of low-level monster kills, yet no observer could detect it through an ordinary status inspection. Before leaving the bed, he opened Death's Curse and reviewed the cost of its next improvement. Raising the skill again demanded 100,000 experience, an amount that would bankrupt most beginners even if they could find enough monsters. Ming confirmed the purchase because the secret realm mattered more than preserving every point for an unknown system upgrade. Black energy moved across the interface as Death's Curse advanced to level 4. The skill now increased every attribute of an ally by 20% and reduced every attribute of an enemy by 20%. That created a 40% effective swing whenever Ming strengthened himself while weakening the same opponent. Applied to the level 5 boss skeleton, the buff transformed an already powerful monster into something far beyond its original dungeon rank. Applied across weaker summons, it improved speed, damage, endurance, and reaction without changing their permanent records. Ming considered upgrading again, but the next cost exceeded his remaining balance. He preserved more than 100,000 points for emergencies, future skills, or the intermediate system stage. The reserve also gave him flexibility if entering the realm triggered an unexpected class requirement or new progression option. Ming opened his status one final time before washing. The display showed level 10, unique necromancer profession, extreme agility, strengthened base attributes, and a nearly complete summon collection. 89 level 2 skeleton warriors waited behind the interface beside the level 5 goblin boss skeleton. The void bow remained stored and ready, eliminating concerns about ammunition during long exploration. Death's Curse had reached level 4, despite being acquired only days earlier. No normal student entering the examination possessed that combination of level, equipment, army size, and stored growth. Ming closed the display because confidence needed to remain private until survival required its full expression. He washed quickly, changed clothes, and entered the living room expecting the usual silence. Instead, Chong sat at the table beside a prepared breakfast. The older man offered an awkward smile and told his son to eat before leaving for the secret realm examination. His tone made the meal sound like a farewell to someone marching toward execution. Ming felt embarrassed by the intensity, but understood where it came from. Chong had already lost his wife inside a dungeon and could not watch his son approach another unknown realm without imagining the same ending. The breakfast was simple, yet preparing it required effort from a body weakened by years of hidden injuries. Ming sat down rather than refusing, allowing the gesture to become part of the repaired connection between them. Neither man spoke comfortably at first, because years of emotional distance could not disappear after one honest night. Chong eventually repeated several warnings about hidden enemies, unstable terrain, and treasures designed to attract competitors into traps. He reminded Ming that retreat remained a victory if the alternative was dying for pride. Ming agreed without promising to abandon the water of life. His father recognized the difference and stopped trying to force another argument. The decision had already been made, and level 9 proof had shown that Ming understood more than his class reputation suggested. Chong asked whether the summons could protect their commander if the realm separated participants or restricted class abilities. Ming answered honestly that he did not know, which visibly worried the older warrior. Secret realms sometimes imposed rules that weakened familiar advantages, so relying on one method remained dangerous. That uncertainty justified purchasing the void bow and investing everything into agility, rather than depending entirely on skeletons. Even without summons, Ming could move faster than most fighters near the level cap and attack safely from distance. Death's Curse could strengthen his body directly, providing another layer of protection if necromancy became temporarily unavailable. Chong seemed relieved that his son had considered those possibilities instead of treating the army as invincible. He encouraged Ming to observe first, reveal power slowly, and avoid chasing treasure before understanding the surrounding rules. The advice matched Su Ming's own plan and confirmed that his father's battlefield instincts remained sharp despite physical decline. A sudden knock interrupted breakfast before either could return to uncomfortable silence. Su Chong immediately recognized the visitor and moved toward the door with more urgency than his damaged body should have allowed. He explained that an old friend had learned about the examination and insisted on driving Su Ming to the academy. Su Ming attempted to refuse because walking alone felt simpler than turning departure into a family ceremony. The door opened before the refusal finished. A massive dark-skinned man stood outside, wearing an honest smile and carrying the relaxed confidence of someone familiar with Su Chong's past. This was Uncle He, Wang Xiaoming's father, and one of the few adults still connected to their isolated household. He greeted Su Ming loudly, joked about the importance of the examination, and announced that transportation had already been decided. Su Chong could not drive safely in his current condition, so Uncle He intended to take responsibility for the journey. Su Ming forced a polite smile and accepted that refusing both men would create more trouble than cooperation. The visitor's arrival also revealed that Su Chong had discussed the examination with someone despite normally avoiding almost every social connection. That effort showed how deeply the coming danger had disturbed him. Uncle He treated the situation with deliberate cheerfulness, preventing fear from dominating the final minutes before departure. He did not know the truth about Level 10, the skeleton army, or the system producing experience every second. To him, Su Ming remained a talented young man, burdened with a profession everyone considered hopeless. The contrast helped Su Ming understand how completely the outside world still underestimated him. Official records showed a Level 1 necromancer who somehow escaped a mutated dungeon through luck. Private reality contained a Level 10 commander capable of summoning 90 soldiers and weakening enemies with a 20% curse. Keeping those two identities separate would become increasingly difficult once the examination began. The secret realm would gather academy students, guild candidates, wealthy heirs, officials, and observers searching for unusual talent. Every meaningful action risked exposing the hidden growth that protected Su Ming precisely because nobody expected it. Yet refusing to use power for the sake of secrecy would be meaningless if Su Chong's medicine appeared beyond a lethal obstacle. Su Ming accepted that the realm might force his public identity to change. He only needed to control when that change happened and ensure enough strength existed to survive the consequences. Before standing, he checked that the storage ring contained the void bow and every essential item collected from the dungeon. The heavy cleaver remained available as equipment or evidence of the Level 5 boss victory. Monster crystals had already been sold, leaving more space for unique rewards found inside the secret realm. No physical arrows were necessary, reducing weight and eliminating one supply problem entirely. The summon interface required no storage space, allowing the undead army to travel invisibly wherever Su Ming went. His remaining experience reserve waited for extraction decisions that could be made after new information appeared. Death's curse could be cast repeatedly and lasted long enough to cover the decisive phase of most beginner battles. Extreme agility gave him the ability to escape, reposition, scout, or create distance whenever opponents focused on the commander. The entire build followed one principle learned through death survival came before damage, pride, or recognition. In the first timeline, Su Ming depended on teams because his class looked too weak to function alone. That dependence gave people like Jiang Yongqing control over his access to experience and eventually control over the circumstances of his death. The super system destroyed that vulnerability by making growth independent from every teammate, guild, and enemy. Permanent summons destroyed it further by creating an army that could not betray him, demand payment, or steal rewards. The storage ring, void bow, and death's curse completed the transformation from rejected beginner into a self-sufficient combat unit. Only Su Chong and Wang Xiaoming had earned enough trust to see fragments of the real person behind the public failure. Even they did not know that every second passing during breakfast added another point to the hidden counter. Su Ming found the thought almost absurd the longer Uncle He talked. The stronger he became without moving. Time had once been an enemy, because every delayed level widened the gap between him and celebrated geniuses. Now time served him automatically, making patience a weapon instead of a sentence. Uncle He finally noticed the untouched portion of breakfast and ordered Su Ming to finish before they left. Su Ming complied, knowing the man's concern resembled Wang Xiaoming's straightforward loyalty. Su Chong remained near the table, watching every movement as though memorizing his son's presence. The damaged father avoided another emotional speech, perhaps fearing that saying too much would sound like surrender to the possibility of death. Su Ming also avoided promising an easy return, because secret realms punished empty confidence more brutally than ordinary dungeons. He promised only that he would prioritize survival and remember why he was entering. Water of Life was not a trophy, a guild reward, or proof of superiority. It represented a chance to restore the man who had blocked 4 clubs despite a body already collapsing from within. It also represented a chance to reopen the history Su Chong buried after the mission that killed Su Ming's mother. Those stakes gave the examination meaning beyond revenge and personal progression. Jiang Yongqing remained an enemy, but the traitor no longer controlled the direction of Su Ming's second life. Shen Yao was gone, the corrupt mentor was gone, and Hua Haitao had learned that hidden strength could reverse any attempted betrayal. The remaining path belonged to Su Ming's choices, rather than the expectations of people who called his profession useless. He stood from the table, and Su Chong's eyes followed him toward the door. Uncle He moved ahead, still talking loudly enough to prevent the apartment from becoming unbearably solemn. Su Ming paused before leaving and looked back at his father. The man on the sofa no longer seemed entirely lifeless, because pride and fear had returned expression to his face. Su Ming understood that recovering the water of life might heal more than damaged organs and shattered combat ability. It could return purpose to a family that had remained frozen since the old dungeon disaster. He gave Su Chong a small nod instead of another argument. His father returned it, silently accepting a decision he could no longer stop and perhaps no longer wanted to stop completely. Su Ming stepped through the doorway with Uncle He, carrying no visible army and revealing no trace of his stored experience. Behind that ordinary appearance waited the strongest hidden advantage any beginner in Jiang City possessed. The secret realm examination had not begun yet, but the powerless future that once trapped Su Ming had already ended. As the apartment door closed behind him, Su Ming heard the system counter advance again, calmly proving that even departure itself continued producing power. He had once spent 3 years chasing scraps of experience from teams that treated him like unwanted weight and discarded him whenever rewards appeared. Now every second belonged entirely to him, untouched by guild politics, family wealth, dungeon access, or another person's willingness to share a kill. That independence changed more than his level, because it removed the desperation that had made betrayal possible during the first timeline. Jiang Yongqing could no longer promise progress as bait, since Su Ming gained more by waiting one day than Jiang could offer across countless dangerous hunts. Even Su Chong could no longer dismiss his son as helpless after witnessing level 9, black portals, and the first genuine hope their family had felt in years. The second life had not erased pain, but it had transformed every wound into information Su Ming could use before the same danger returned. He knew which friend deserved protection, which classmate carried a hidden knife, and which smiling face would sell him for the smallest advantage. Regression alone might have prevented several disasters, yet the super system allowed him to do more than simply avoid his previous mistakes. It gave him enough power to create outcomes that had never existed, beginning with Wang Xiaoming surviving the assassination that once ended his life. That rescue proved fate was not fixed. But the mutated dungeon also warned that changing fate created unfamiliar consequences beyond Su Ming's memories. The future had become dangerous precisely because it was finally open, no longer following the road that led inevitably toward betrayal and death. The unique necromancer class no longer represented shame, poor statistics, or a joke about dying to the weakest monster in existence. It represented permanent access to every useful creature whose information Su Ming could extract after death, regardless of how many times the resulting summon fell. One goblin corpse had become one soldier, then 2, then dozens, until an entire forest could no longer contain the expanding tide of bone. The level 5 boss proved that stronger creatures preserved skills, turning future victories into permanent additions rather than temporary experience and disposable loot. Death's curse strengthened that foundation by improving the army as one connected force, instead of forcing Su Ming to invest separately in every individual summon. Extreme agility protected the only irreplaceable part of the formation, ensuring the commander could retreat, while undead soldiers absorbed every dangerous exchange. The void bow gave him endless ranged pressure, solving the ammunition problem that nearly limited his first dungeon hunt after only a few monsters. Stored experience waited behind all of those tools, ready to become another skill upgrade or system evolution after the realm revealed its demands. That secrecy remained Su Ming's greatest defense against powerful organizations that would never allow an uncontrolled, concept-level ability to grow peacefully. He understood that guild invitations could offer resources while quietly becoming chains, especially once CE observers realized time alone increased his strength without limit. For now, remaining the mocked necromancer created freedom, allowing enemies to reveal contempt, greed, and betrayal before they recognized the danger standing nearby. Jiang Yongqing had already made that mistake twice, first by arranging the alley ambush, and later by entering the dungeon without imagining retaliation. Only the return of a stronger guard saved him from the skeleton blade descending toward his throat beside the dying campfire. That unfinished revenge remained patient, because Su Ming no longer needed immediate satisfaction to believe justice would eventually arrive. Every hour added thousands of experience. Every monster corpse offered another soldier, and every level increased the distance between predator and former victim. The most urgent battle involved Su Chong, whose worsening injuries placed a limit on how long patience could remain a responsible strategy. Water of Life therefore stood above money, recognition, guild selection, and even the possibility of killing Jiang inside the examination. Su Ming would not sacrifice the medicine for revenge unless the traitor directly threatened his survival or the objective he had entered to complete. That priority showed how far he had moved beyond the terrified young man who awakened with hatred, consuming every thought in the plaza. Revenge gave him heat, but protecting his remaining family gave that power direction and prevented it from becoming another form of self-destruction. Su Chong had once thrown his broken body between armed thugs and the son he called useless moments earlier. The contradiction revealed that anger had never erased love, only buried it beneath grief, injury, pride, and years of unanswered questions. The prepared breakfast and arranged ride carried the same protective instinct without reopening wounds that could kill the injured berserker immediately. Su Ming intended to return that protection through medicine, powerful enough to restore both physical strength and the dignity his father believed permanently lost. He also intended to learn why Su Chong recognized the realm, why Su Ming's mother died there, and why qualification mattered before truth. At awakening, Su Ming possessed one point in nearly every attribute: no understood skill, no respected profession, and enemies already arranging violence around him. Before the examination, he possessed level 10 growth, a 20% curse, extreme speed, a permanent army, a boss commander, and equipment purchased with his own earnings. The transformation did not come from family wealth, secret tutors, stolen resources, or protection granted by an established guild. It came from one hidden system: knowledge carried through death, and Su Ming's willingness to test a class everyone else abandoned without understanding. The old necromancer records had described failure because previous users never survived long enough or waited patiently enough for extraction to finish. Su Ming's regression gave him the crucial clue, while idle experience removed the weak early stage that had killed those predecessors. Together, those advantages turned two separately incomplete powers into a progression engine with no obvious ceiling. Experience increased levels and skills. Stronger levels increased summon capacity, and larger armies produced safer access to stronger corpses. Stronger corpses created better permanent soldiers, which allowed Su Ming to defeat even more dangerous monsters while risking less of his own body. Every completed cycle expanded the next one, creating the unlimited progression promised by a system that never stopped counting seconds. Su Ming did not know its monsters, terrain, missions, factions, or relationship to the tragedy that destroyed his family. He knew only that the level restriction placed every participant within reach and prevented veteran guardians from dominating the entire examination personally. That rule favored preparation, hidden abilities, strategy, and adaptability more than raw backing, giving Su Ming his best possible battlefield. Elite heirs could carry expensive equipment, but they could not bring high-level adults through an entrance that rejected anyone above level 10. Guild candidates could enter organized teams, yet no human group matched an army whose casualties returned without argument, fear, or permanent loss. Assassins could hide from eyes, but surrounding skeletons, extreme agility, and previous experience with Hua Haitao made silent approaches far less reliable. Mages could erase waves of low-level soldiers, but repeated summoning would drain their mana, just as it destroyed both protectors serving Jiang and Shen Yao. Boss monsters could shatter individual warriors, yet numbers, ranged pressure, curses, and replacement eventually turned overwhelming strength into exhausted vulnerability. He still respected unknown threats because the zombie-like dungeon mutation had already produced monsters above the rules. Everyone believed guaranteed safety. Any secret realm capable of hiding water of life could contain rewards and dangers beyond a novice city's understanding. Ming would enter carefully, observe before acting, and reveal only the minimum strength required to preserve life and reach the medicine. If circumstances demanded more, the black portals would open, and every witness would finally understand why the necromancer class had vanished for a century. Until then, the army remained invisible, the void bow remained stored, and the experience reserve remained hidden behind an ordinary student's calm expression. "Uncle?" He saw only a quiet teenager following him away from breakfast, unaware that every step added another point to an already impossible reserve. Suchong saw more, because he had witnessed enough to replace disappointment with frightened pride. But even he did not know the system's complete rule. Wang Xiaoming knew about the army and level 9, yet loyalty kept him silent when public praise gathered around Ye Lingfei instead. That small circle of partial trust protected Su Ming better than the hundreds of false allies he once chased throughout his failed first life. Results would eventually become impossible to hide, and when that moment arrived, he intended to control the battlefield rather than beg for recognition. For now, walking toward the examination as an underestimated candidate created exactly the advantage he wanted. Competitors would dismiss his class, mentors would allocate attention elsewhere, and enemies would expose plans without considering him capable of retaliation. The same contempt that once destroyed Su Ming's confidence had become camouflage wrapped around the strongest beginner progression system in Jiang City. He carried the memory of his death without allowing it to dictate every choice, using the pain as warning rather than permanent identity. The monster horde beneath the cliff had ended one timeline, but the laughter above it had revealed the final truth about Jiang Yongqing. Returning 3 years earlier gave Su Ming time to prepare, while unlimited experience gave him the force necessary to turn preparation into victory. No desperate team requests waited ahead, no level 9 ceiling trapped him, and no false friend controlled the final step toward advancement. Midnight would always come, the extraction would always occur, and the counter would continue rising as long as Su Ming remained alive. That made survival the central rule connecting every attribute choice, every hidden summon, every retreat, and every apparently cowardly decision. Su Ming had already proven he could escape stronger guards, outlast higher-level mages, and crush a boss through intelligent use of disposable soldiers. The next realm might demand different answers, but it would face a necromancer capable of learning without repeating the mistakes that killed him once. Behind him, the apartment held a father waiting for medicine and truth, giving every future victory a purpose greater than personal pride. Ahead of him waited an examination filled with guilds, geniuses, hidden rules, and a legendary reward that could rebuild the broken household. Between those 2 points walked Su Ming, no longer the abandoned failure from his first life, and not yet the legend his system could create. He was simply a level 10 necromancer, carrying unlimited potential behind an ordinary face, prepared to survive long enough for that potential to become undeniable. The academy still called Ye Lingfei its greatest genius, while Jiang Yongqing still believed wealth and a mage profession guaranteed his future superiority. Neither understood that Su Ming had already crossed years of progression during the time they spent celebrating beginner success. Even the principal who suspected hidden strength could not imagine an experience counter-advancing during speeches, meals, sleep, travel, and every moment of silence. That secret transformed, waiting from weakness into accumulation, and made every delayed confrontation increasingly favorable to Su Ming. Time would provide the levels, monsters would provide the army, and his enemies would provide opportunities through their own arrogance. Su Ming adjusted his expression before stepping fully away from home, returning the calm mask that had protected his secrets since awakening day. Uncle He continued speaking beside him, offering ordinary encouragement to someone he believed needed confidence before a dangerous examination. Su Ming listened respectfully, because genuine concern deserved patience, even when the person offering it understood only a fraction of the situation. The contrast reminded him that not every relationship hid betrayal, and recognizing loyalty remained as important as punishing those who abused it. Wang Xiaoming and Su Chong had both risked themselves for him before understanding his hidden power, proving their value without demanding future rewards. Their safety became another reason to prevent the system from falling into the hands of factions willing to threaten family for control. The path ahead would eventually require allies, but Su Ming would choose them through actions rather than status, beauty, promises, or old familiarity. His first life ended because he confused companionship with loyalty and dependence with friendship. His second life began by separating those ideas through blood, consequences, and choices that could never be taken back. The examination represented the closing point of his powerless beginning, not the beginning of another period spent waiting for someone else's approval. Whatever happened inside the realm, Su Ming entered with enough strength to make his own decisions and enough experience stored to adapt when rules changed. He carried no visible banner, famous guild emblem, or family guardian, yet he possessed something every competing faction lacked. His power grew continuously before battle, during battle, after battle, and even through the quiet seconds when everyone believed nothing was happening. 3 years of humiliation had been compressed into several days of reversal, transforming the former victim into the hidden commander of death. Su Ming left home beside Uncle He without looking back again, because returning with water of life mattered more than performing a dramatic farewell. The system counter continued rising as the distance from the apartment increased, steady and indifferent to fear. One point became another, then another, building the future no betrayal could steal from him again. The world still believed the necromancer profession was useless, but Su Ming had already proven that the world was completely wrong. From this day forwards, every passing second belonged to the regressed necromancer who refused to die powerless twice.